Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to
Hello.
another installment of Coffee Chats. My name is Kyra Dawkins, and I am joined by the ever iconic Mackenzie Finklea. Oh my goodness, we
What do I
love
do?
hosting this space with you, and being with you all here. Um, Man, can you believe it's February? I know
No,
it's just crazy. I can't believe it's February, and it's like relatively deep into February too. Not even
don't
like it
remind
just
me.
started. The 2023 is just like moving along so fast. Like it's almost disrespectful, but I'm not too mad because
You'll need an app for me to help with
this
that. Try search.
Sorry, Siri was talking.
no, it's fine. It just is like that. But how are you? How is your February, Mackenzie?
It's going great. I'm really looking forward to first weekend of Mardi Gras this weekend, and
Oh
then second weekend
right.
next weekend, and then actual Mardi Gras the following Tuesday. So I've got a lot of parties coming up that I'm personally looking forward to. I've got my Mardi Gras earrings on today.
Oh, I see what you're doing here. That's so exciting. Well, speaking of exciting things, we have an exciting guest joining us today here on Coffee Chats. So, without further ado, let's have a dramatic drum roll, please. And
Slaps
welcome our
desk.
guest for today. Hello, Christina.
Hello. I definitely think that's my first drum roll.
Well, we love to have a warm welcome for our guests here on Coffee Chats. But would you care to introduce yourself to our wonderful audience today?
Sure. My name is on the screen, but I'm Krisitina Eisenhower. I'm coming to you from my happy place, which is colorful Colorado.
Ooh,
And my February is also off to an awesome start because I got my books delivered finally. So
yay! We love to see it. There's nothing more exciting than having your published book in your hand for the first time. It's a very surreal moment.
yeah, I'm like bathing in them now. They're everywhere because I'm in the midst of putting the packages together and getting them out in the mail. So,
How does it feel to sign them?
good, but because some of the people I know, so it's not just a rote thing. Like if I was at a bookstore, I didn't know the people, so
Right.
I'm crafting the note. In other words,
Would you tell our audience a little bit about what your book is about?
sure. It's called The Art of Positive Disruption: A Krizillion Ways to Create a Kaleidoscopic Life. And it's really all about putting your creative energy in play in order to uh, disrupt the mundane, those daily, everyday tasks or obligations, things like that.
Well, that sounds fascinating. I mean, building off of just sort of talking about what your book is about, when was the moment? So, as our first question, when was the moment that you knew you wanted to write a book anyway?
Ugh, the moment,
The moment.
um, it was a dark and stormy night, and lightning struck, and uh, I would say there was kind of a moment, but really it's sometimes you don't know what the destination is. I set out on my 52nd birthday to do 52 weeks of experiences, just like experimenting with my life, my everyday life, like sleeping, eating, dressing, all that kind of stuff. And I knew I wanted to write about it, but I wasn't sure where or if I was going to share that like in a blog or if I was just going to journal, what was going to come of it. So I did that experience. I did journal it all the time because I've been journaling for over 30 years.
Mhm.
um, and so I've been a writer in many different ways. Then I went to a writer's retreat with author Jen Loudon. She's the author of the Woman's Comfort book, and her most recent one's called Why Bother? Discover Your Desire for What's Next, or something like that.
Mhm.
Anyway, so I went to that retreat in Mexico. I was living and working in Japan, and I went to Mexico for this retreat. That was February of 2017, and I think that's when I would say the moment was where it's like, I think I can do this.
That's so cool. I've never heard of the 52 and 52 week experience like concept before. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun.
Mm,
I learned a lot.
mm. So something that we both know that you have, well, all of us here know that you have expertise in, or something that you sort of grappled with in some of your writing, is sort of the distinction between creativity and artistic ability. And oftentimes people use those terms interchangeably, or they're like
Mhm.
very interconnected. But in your opinion, within your expertise, what is that difference between creativity and artistic ability, and why does that difference matter?
Well, I think you're right that a lot of people like misinterpret the word creativity. They automatically, or they want to equate it with artistic ability. But I do think they're separate. There's overlap, of course, but creativity is innate. It's Everyone is creative. It's your birthright. It's also what I consider your responsibility. From you are the creator and the creation. So it's your responsibility to create your life, your day, your everything. So that doesn't necessarily take artistic ability, right? To create your own reality or to create a vibrant experience for yourself, like those experiments I did back on my 52nd birthday. So artistic ability is, that skill or talent or mastery of painting, singing, dancing, sculpting, whatever it might be.
So when it comes to artistic ability, it's definitely something you can practice and that you can hone.
Mm.
Would you say, so even though creativity is something that is innate, something that we're born with, is practice where they hold hands? You get what
I
I'm
love
getting
that
at?
expression, Mackenzie. That's really awesome. I might have to steal that. Yeah, I think you're right that they do hold hands, and that's where the overlap that I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So every one of us is creative. We're creating every moment that we exist. Art is something that we all have a unique flair to. Most of us deny it or doubt it, unless we see or somebody has praised us for, oh my God, you're a great painter, or, those kinds of things, right? Most often in school, it goes the other direction. So it's like, you got a D on that, ashtray that you try to make in art class. So
my follow-up to
practicing.
my follow-up. Yeah. So practicing is important to both of these things. My follow-up to my follow-up is, well, now I've forgot. Oh, practicality. Like, so in what parts of our life are honing in these skills most useful? Because most often I feel like I hear a lot of people say, oh, I'm not creative, or, oh, I can't draw. And it's like, we're starting to hear from you that it's like, well, everyone is creative. Like, so at what point do we not necessarily convince, but I want to say convince these people that these are practical life skills and you need to utilize them?
Well, hopefully that's what my book will do, but not in an academic or textbook sort of way. I'm showing the experience of creating something out of my everyday existence. Like, we all eat, we all sleep, we all dress, but when you got up this morning, you decided, you created that outfit that you're wearing, right? You decided to wear those Mardi Gras earrings with that particular dress or whatever it might be. That's bringing elements of your innate creativity together and producing something. It's not art for your wall or, a trinket for the coffee table, but it's your creativity being expressed. And that's what really I think everybody wants, but we totally doubt and deny and hold it back. And that's why you hear people say things like, oh, I can't even draw a stick figure. It's not required to draw a stick figure.
No, yeah. Comparison is the thief of all joy.
Right.
So those are the people that if they don't think that they're creative, it's like, well, compared to what? What are you comparing yourself to?
Right.
That's a great point.
What did you make for dinner or breakfast this morning? You created something, right?
Absolutely. And if anyone in the audience has a follow-up question for our guest as we're talking, please feel free to drop it in the chat, wherever that is. I think it's over here. And our next prepared question that we do have for you is, are creativity and artistic ability equally important in writing a book?
I think they both play a role, but I'm not sure that they're equal because, I mean, again, we could call it the art of writing, right? But I'm slapping words down on a page and making deadlines and edits and all of that kind of stuff. I'm creating the story or the vignette, the characters, whatever might be in there. But I don't think I need, drawing ability or singing ability or some of those other arts, fine arts, shall we say, in order to make that book happen. However, you guys do, or the publisher needs the layout person, the graphic elements that are inside. Like, my book is not just words on a page of 200 pages plus or whatever. It's got graphic elements. It has photos. It has some art to it, and I may have conceived of it, but I didn't produce that. Right. So I'm not a graphic designer or I didn't draw. I mean, I did paint the artwork that's on the front, but that's just something I wanted to do.
Sure. Well, so, I mean, I would only push back against that a little bit in that I feel like literary arts is underrated as something that's included within this artistic realm of, like, painting, singing, etc. Kyra, do you have any thoughts and opinions?
Yeah, I mean, something that you said that piqued my interest, Kristina, is sort of like, in a way, a book is like a collaborative act of art, because you did lend your creativity, and if we're using the framing of literary arts, your artistic ability to write the book, but then somebody else leveraged their artistic ability to create the cover, and somebody else used their artistic ability to curate the graphics. So there's kind of like a book is like a collective, even though the soul of it or the driving entity behind it coming to fruition is you as the author, there is sort of like this interplay of creativity and individual and collective artistic ability too. Did you find that as part of your experience?
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't have done it. I mean, it takes a village, right? I mean, I could have done it. I could have just hacked it out here on my computer, taken it to Kinko's, typed it off, had it spiral bound and said, here it is, right? That's still a book.
Right.
But you're right. It's a collaborative, collective effort. Yeah. And I agree with you too, Mackenzie, that the literary arts are a little underrated. And maybe that's where I struggle with my own denial or doubt, self-doubt and things like that, where it's like, oh yeah, so I wrote a book. Okay.
Imposter syndrome.
It's a much bigger deal.
We all suffer from it.
Oh, absolutely. And it's hard when you're collaborating within a community of a bunch of other authors. It's easy to feel like, oh, this is something everyone does. Everyone is writing books. This is so common. Wrong.
Wrong. Only 2% of people who say they're going to write a book ever do. And even of that 2%, even a smaller percentage of them proceed to actually have that book published. So,
which is astounding.
Yeah, right. And I mean, like, yes, all three of us here are published authors, but we have to, in the midst of humanity, we are an anomaly, but in a good way.
And doesn't it seem strange, though, with those statistics, when you walk into a bookstore or you go on Amazon or whatever, it's like, oh my God, there are so many books and so many authors I've never heard of, or the topics and all that stuff. That's really a fraction of 2% of what, the world's population, or is that the US population?
I want to say it's the world, or at least like they probably conducted the survey across a variety of different countries and not just the US. Maybe not the whole world, but
there's a lot of books out there, and it's easy to feel less than. Again, comparison is the thief of all joy.
Right, truly is.
You shouldn't do it. But I think these ideas of community and collaboration do lead well into the next prepared question that we have for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that, because within this idea of a book being a collaborative effort from a production standpoint, from leveraging creativity and leveraging artistic ability, why would it be important for an author in the midst of creating a book to pursue community and external accountability throughout that creative journey or process? Like, is it something that can be done alone?
Well, because I didn't do it alone, I don't know. I'm sure several authors have, and in the old days, let's say, we didn't have internet or, this kind of connectivity. So I can only imagine those famous names that we know about, and that's also the sort of the dreamy, mystic vision of being an author. It's like, I'm just here in my office typing away, drinking heavily.
Yes. Or in the case of Victor Hugo, when he was pressed for a deadline to finish a book, he had his personal assistant, because he had one of those, hide all of his clothes so that he was forced to hang out by himself naked and finish the book, so he couldn't go outside because he didn't have any clothes.
Wow.
That's one way to finish a book.
I'm not mad. I'm not mad at that approach. It's a unique one.
So in this day and age, with all of those books out there and the overwhelm that it can give to new authors or first-time authors, yeah, I think it's super important to pursue a support group. And I don't mean like in a therapeutic sort of way, but a community of supporters, people who will help spread the word, because you have to gain exposure. Right. Yeah. Like I said, when I go to the bookstore and I see, it's like, I've never heard of this person, but it sounds like a good book, so I pick it up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I know that for me, when I was going through my book journey, me telling other people that I was in fact working on a book was part of the reason why I actually finished. Because if I didn't tell anyone and I didn't have other people doing it along with me, working on their own projects, it would have been like, oh, wow, things got in the way. Whoops.
Yeah, right.
Alas, this has slipped through my fingers.
And really, we're always keeping more track of ourselves than anybody else is tracking us, Mm-hmm. So I have felt that along the journey as well. Even back in 2017, when I went to that writer's retreat, I didn't tell anybody. I mean, that circle that was there, we were all there for the same reason. So that was cool.
Yeah.
But then when I got home and went back to work on it, I'm like, I'm not telling anybody. And there was also, talk about the thief of joy. I had some issues with, if I put it out there like in a blog post or I tell somebody too much, they'll steal it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think another aspect of it too, like when things are published, well, technically, even if they were trying to take it from you inside of a blog post, you are protected by common law copyright, and you could go after them.
Well, also, you're the only person who can write your book from your perspective. So even if they took the idea, which would suck, they can never write your book.
No,
exactly. I had to counsel myself on that several times, because yeah, they could, but that was the idea of them taking the idea was scary enough. So I'm like, no, I'll just hold it under my vest and I'll wait. And if they stole it at that point, I would have never gone through with it, even though I was like, well, they can't do it like I can do it. I just, it would have crushed me.
So with all of this, we ebb back and forth between isolation and community, right? Because it is important to have these other people, like with any difficult task, and writing a book is an especially difficult task. It's important to have a support system. So kind of another follow-up to this question is, where do you enjoy engaging with the writing community most? In the past, we've had guests that are like, I love in person, or I prefer virtual writing groups, or... So where do you prefer?
I was going to ask you to clarify where. What does that mean?
Yeah.
For me, it's definitely in person. I am interactive and I love the experience of being with other people, writers or readers or whatever it may be. I'm a recovering academic, so I'm all about that being in the same room with the people that are engaging with me. So that's my favorite. It's not always possible, especially in this day and age, because we're all over the world,
Yeah.
So online, I would say Instagram, those authors and other authors' events and offerings, even though they're online. I love to jump into those clubs or courses or, events.
Well, I think a quick follow-up question. This one isn't exactly prepared, but I'm just curious. So I also am very partial to in person like engagement when possible, but then also we do have the blessing of the internet in that we can interface with people. That's how, Mackenzie became one of my best friends because of the
I
internet.
love it.
And so I guess my follow-up question would be, through the interactions you've been able to have with people virtually or just through this program in general, have you found it shaping your voice and brand? So, like, as you're engaging with people, does that reinforce your own individual messaging?
Yeah, I think it does, because the more I talk about this book, and now especially I have to talk about it if I want to, get it out there. I'm almost like reliving it. So the enthusiasm and the energy and those things are coming out every time that I talk about it or engage with some other author that's been through this program or another, or I discover that somebody's published a book last year or something like that. So yeah, it's definitely shaping that.
That's awesome. I mean, I think I want to tell myself that it happens for me too, but then when I overthink it, then maybe it isn't, maybe it's not. I think that the moral of the story is that authors and writers and creative minds tend to overthink, and we probably shouldn't.
That's like
Yeah.
saying a penguin tends to be cute. It's all it does.
Yeah, but plus I'm a Gemini, so I'm an air sign. So
Oh,
it's
girl.
always going crazy upstairs in my head. So
Well, we do, very fortunately, we have the grace of having a question from the audience today, which I'm very excited about. Mage wants to know, for novel wordcraft, how much essential theory do you think there is? And the way I'm interpreting this question is, when we're talking about like artistic ability and honing skill, when it comes to literary arts, there are a certain amount of skills that are required to be a good writer, as it were. Grammar, sentence structure, fluidity, tone, etc. So in your opinion, Kristina, how much essential theory do you think is involved in writing a book? Because I know we've also heard anyone can write a book.
Well, that's true. Anyone can, as long as they can write, they can form letters into words, into sentences, and so on. But I think we all know that there's plenty of books out there that aren't great to read. They're, for whatever reason, whether they can't tell a story or that they don't have the right grammar, sentence structure, or things like that. Again, in my academic career, I would teach academic writing. So yeah, it's a 5-paragraph essay. Start with your thesis statement. You got to have the transitions, So those kinds of basics, I hope everybody learned in school, but it's a wide open playing field now. So, and of course, I didn't write a novel. Mine's nonfiction, and it's based on those experiences or experiments that I did. So it's more like, I like to say, my book ignores the borders between genres, right? It's spoken voice, it's written voice, it's highbrow literature, it's children's nursery rhymes. I mean, literally, all of that is in there. And I think that's okay. But of course, I look at everything with a kaleidoscopic view, so it's going to be kaleidoscopic.
But I think an important aspect of what you shared is that even when, like, you knew the rules well enough to understand what you were pressing against, and you had a framework for how you were going to go about strategically pressing against the rules. Like, you knew that you wanted to take a kaleidoscopic approach to your writing process. Like, you have to know the rules and to understand how to break them, and for any of what you then assert to be intelligible or to make sense. And do
Yeah.
you feel that that's kind of how you went about framing your book writing process?
Yeah, it's actually my art of positive disruption, positively disrupting those restrictions or that framework of the academic. I wanted to bust out of that. I wanted it to be my voice, but intelligent, showing that I'm aware of those elements and that they, like sentence structure and those kinds of things. So I approached it that way from the very beginning.
That's awesome. Well, we do have one last official question for you today, and that is, do you have any final words of wisdom, just from either from a lesson from your book or from your writing process, that you would like to share with our audience today?
I would say the three tenets of my book are, I don't know that it's wisdom, but I would put them out there as reminders that everything is energy, everything. And that 2, action is alchemy. It changes everything. One step, one action changes everything. So it's also like a kaleidoscope, right? You take one turn of that scope or that lens, and the whole design or pattern changes. And then the third is that creativity, the kind of creativity that we were talking about, not optional. It's mandatory.
Creativity is not optional. Dang. And action is alchemy. I mean, I loved all of that. I don't know if you have bumper stickers as merch.
You need a t-shirt.
You need t-shirts.
Right.
You need t-shirts. You need stickers for laptops, and you need bumper stickers.
I would wear a t-shirt that
For
says
you,
creativity
Kyra.
is not optional.
I think I would have like action is alchemy, like on like a notebook, and then it would be like a gold notebook because
Yes.
Yeah.
My
Well, I'm
idea.
very action oriented, and I did have a journal one time that said inspiration without action is just bullshit. So I'm like, yeah. And that's, I think, where I started to think of action and looking at myself and all of those experiences and experiments. That it was like every action I took changed something.
Yeah. I did. It's interesting because between that comment that you just made, Kristina, and the comment that Mage has here, which is like, I've reached the point of diminishing returns on reading books and watching videos on writing. Like, there's a fine line, right? I was reading Atomic Habits by James Clear, which I know everyone is reading, but he said this interesting point where it was like, at a certain point, we were tricking ourselves into thinking we're making progress on, let's say we want to write a book. And it's like, oh, well, I read something related, or, oh, I watched a writing video today. So like I'm making progress, when we're not really truly taking action towards the goal that we have. So action, you're right. Action is alchemy, and everything is energy, and creativity is not an option.
That's right.
I mean, there's definitely a point where preparation actually is procrastination. And I want to shout out
Guilty.
and I also just want to shout out Mage, and again, building off of the phrasing that you used, Christina. They mentioned, I am an alchemist, transformation of the self into gold. I just thought that was
Absolutely.
beautiful. Just wanted to
With
put that
every
on.
step
That's great.
of journey.
That's so wonderful. Well, Christina, thank you so much for joining us today. This was
Thank
a lot of
you.
fun. I mean, I think that your particular voice in relaying wisdom is just so, like, those last 3 like phrasings in particular, I can genuinely see
Yeah.
like t-shirts and notebooks.
Well, watch
Just
your
so-
mailbox, girl. It'll come. I'll send you one.
Well, honestly, like, please. I'm excited to see them on your website or wherever you post them. And in fact, like, where can some of our audience members like continue to follow you?
Yeah, on my website, probably the best and easiest way to reach me, which is kaleidoliving.com. And on that site, of course, there is a page dedicated for the book, and it's also just called The Art of Positive Disruption. I think if you Google it, I tried to do that the other day. If you Google it, it will also take you to that book page.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today, Kristina.
Thank you both.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate it.
Well, beautiful people, thank you. Well, beautiful people, thank you so much for joining us for yet another fun and exciting coffee chat. Nate actually joined us from the UK, which is so great. Thank you for joining us from there. So if you guys happen to have any questions, comments, concerns, confessions for us, do not hesitate to drop them in the comment section below. Within that comment section, you can also suggest a topic, and that topic can pertain to anything in the publishing and writing and reading world. We're more than happy to take that on. It could be topics, it could be people you want to see, you could pitch yourself, all those sorts of things.
It could be you.
It could be you. We love talking to people.
And you could have so much fun with it. I've been smiling so hard, my headphones keep falling out of my ears.
And you can also find us as individuals on Instagram. Myself, like Kyra Ann Wrights, and the incredible Mackenzie Finklea.
At author M. Finklea and many other places on the interwebernets. But for now, that is all we have for you today, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye, beautiful people.